What's up, people? Joe Winko here, your favorite Hawaiian guy, and here's my next episode of Joe Winko Talk. So, this is going to be a really personal and a very morbid and very gloomy episode of Joe Winko Talk, and it's going to have some triggering subjects that are going to be discussed in it. So, yeah, if this kind of stuff upsets you, I wouldn't recommend watching this video. My haters are definitely going to love this one, though, that's for sure. And the whole point of all my YouTube videos is for you guys to get to know me and what goes on in my life and what went on in my life and what goes on inside my autism mind. So that's why I wanted to talk about this. This episode of Joe Winko Talk is going to be covering a very dark time in my life, as you can tell from the title of this video. I'm going to be talking about the time I was going to kill myself on a beach in Virginia back in August of 2017. So, 2017 was a very rough year in my life, honestly. At that time, I was living in Wisconsin, and I absolutely hated the state of Wisconsin. I didn't want to stay there. I definitely didn't want to live there, and I didn't want to die there at all either. 2017 was also the time when I moved to Florida, but this was a couple months before that even happened, really. So back in 2017, I was living in an apartment that my adoptive parents got for me in Wisconsin. It wasn't until much later on they planned on sending me to Florida, but I didn't really know so much about that at this time, really. I'm also a type 1 diabetic. That means that I'm insulin dependent and I have to take insulin to survive. Without insulin, I would die a pretty painful death. It wouldn't be a fun way to die, and I would be dead in 5 to 8 days. However, most of my diabetic doctors who I've talked to, a lot of them told me that it would take much less time than that to die of no insulin, which is kind of what brought me to almost end my life in 2017. At that time, I was living in Wisconsin, as I said earlier, and I was on the state health insurance program for the state of Wisconsin. I believe it was called Badger Care or something like that. The thing that a lot of people don't realize is that the state of Wisconsin, they don't give a fuck about helping people at all. They don't give a fuck about their citizens at all. Because in August of 2017, I received a notice in the mail from, I don't know what the agency is, the same agency that runs the Badger Care and everything. It was a notification that I was going to be cut off my Wisconsin state health insurance. Therefore, I wouldn't be able to get my insulin at all. And I was already stressed out about enough stuff that year. I was already angry and upset about enough stuff that year. And getting that notification in the mail was just the thing that literally almost threw me over the edge. And I was really pissed off and I was really angry. I hated Wisconsin, and now the state was going to cut me off of my state health insurance, which is what I needed to get the insulin to keep myself alive. So I was pissed off and I wanted to kill myself. And one major thing that a lot of people get wrong about people who want to kill themselves, they always think that when someone wants to kill themselves, that it's because they don't have respect for themselves or because they hate themselves and they want themselves to die. But in all honesty, that definitely is not always true. And it definitely wasn't true for me. Because if enough of you guys watch my videos on YouTube, you would know that I definitely do not hate myself. I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of who I am. And I love myself more than anyone else ever will. And that's pretty sad when you think about it, but it is true, honestly. And I thought that this was really unfair, and I thought, you know what? You don't deserve to live in a world like this. And you guys probably are misunderstanding what I'm saying there, but I was thinking, I don't deserve to exist in a place like this. I want to leave. I'm done playing this game. I want out and I want to leave forever. So that was the mindset that I had. And I thought, I deserve to be back in heaven with my biological uncle, Romario. And for those of you who don't know who my biological uncle, Romario, was, he was the only biological family member who I've ever known. I lived with him in the Dominican Republic for 2 years, and me and him were best friends. But in 2010, he went into a coma from brain cancer, and he passed away in 2012. And after he died, his body was cremated and his ashes were scattered in the Atlantic Ocean. And it still hurts me to this day. There's not a day that passes where I don't think about him, and it's been a really, really, really long time since I've seen him, but it still hurts just as much, honestly. You may not see it, but it hurts just as much, and every day I miss him because me and him were best friends, and he was the only biological family member I ever knew. And in my honest opinion, he was the only family member who I ever had, and the only true friend I've ever had. When I was living with him in the Dominican Republic, he had a lot of drawings all over the place, like these pictures that he drew of this really muscular man who had a long beard and who wore a crown and who was like a mermaid, kinda. That's my way of describing him. He had like a fish tail for legs and he was holding a trident, and I didn't know who this character was at the time. It wasn't until later on I stumbled across another character who resembled the drawings that my biological uncle had all over the house. And that's when I found out that all those drawings were of King Neptune. And I never asked Uncle Romario about those drawings at all, really. At first I just thought it was a character that he came up with, and I told him that those drawings are really cool, and he would just say thank you. We never would really talk about them much, but all those drawings that he had were actually of King Neptune. King Neptune is apparently the god of the sea. I believe he's a Roman god. I could be wrong, but that's what I remember about King Neptune. I didn't really read that much up on him, really. But after I found out who he was, my autism mind imagined this. Whenever I would get really sad and not want to be alive anymore, I always would think that I would want to die and be reunited with my biological uncle. His ashes were scattered out into the Atlantic Ocean, and I always thought that if I died, the spirit of King Neptune would come to me, and he would take my soul out into the Atlantic Ocean where my biological uncle's ashes were scattered, and that he would reunite me with my biological uncle, and me and him would both go to heaven together. And that's what I always believed, and I still believe that to this day. Another thing is that I always wanted to die on a beach, really, because I always would think that during the last moments of my life, I would want to be surrounded by beauty. And I always thought the beach was a beautiful place to be. I would never want to live near a beach. The reason why is because I'm scared of tsunamis and hurricanes. But if it was my decision where to spend the last moments of my life, I would want to spend them on a beach, really. I just always thought that there was something so beautiful about beaches. The way you just walk on the beach and then that's as far as you can walk and you look out into the water. it kind of, this is probably not going to make sense to many people, but this is something I came up with because of my autism mind. To me, the beach kind of signifies the end of your life because that's as far as you're going to walk. You can't walk any further. And then out in the horizon, out in the water, that represents the afterlife. That represents heaven. You can't go there until you die, but that's as far as you go, and you don't know what's out there. You don't know what's out in that water. It kind of represented death and the afterlife to me. And that's definitely my autism mind that causes me to think that way. But that was the thing. And that's what I was thinking back in 2017 when I got that note in the mail saying that they're going to cut me off of my Wisconsin state health insurance and that I wouldn't be able to get my insulin anymore. I started thinking that I wanted to die on a beach, and I wanted to die far away from Wisconsin because I hated Wisconsin. I already wasted enough of my life there, and I definitely did not want to die there, and I definitely did not want to be buried there, and I definitely don't want my remains there or anything like that. At first, I was going to do this on a beach in Florida, and I was looking at the most isolated beaches in Florida. That's what I was trying to find. But then I kept thinking about it, and I kept thinking, Florida is a very crowded place. I wanted to be alone on the beach when I died. I didn't want anyone around me or near me at all. I just wanted to go by myself, not have anyone witness it, not have anyone see it at all. So I was looking at the beaches on Google Maps, and that's when I noticed the state of Virginia again. And I actually always loved the state of Virginia. I thought it was beautiful. At that time, I had never been there before, but I always thought Virginia was beautiful. The first thing that stood out to me about the state of Virginia is the way the state is shaped. It's shaped exactly like my bandana that I wear in all my YouTube videos. When I have my bandana off and when it's not wrapped around my head, it's shaped the exact same way as the state of Virginia. So that's one reason why I'm spiritually connected to the state of Virginia because of that. And I've been to Virginia before, back in 2019, and I did a video there, one of me on a road in Norfolk, Virginia, or Norfolk, Virginia, as the locals call it. Another one of me at Virginia Beach with the King Neptune statue, and another one of me on the beach where I was going to end my life at, really. I also really been wanting to go back to Virginia, but I didn't want to go to the coastal part. I wanted to go to the western part of Virginia, like the town of Winchester, Virginia, because there's actually an interstate that I've been wanting to go down for a really long time, and it's Interstate 81. The whole entire interstate of Interstate 81, it goes from New York to Tennessee, but the only part of it that I wanted to drive down was from Winchester, Virginia to Roanoke, Virginia, because I always thought that seemed like a really cool drive because when you first start out, you're driving through the Appalachian Mountains, and at first it's really flat, but as you keep driving south closer to Roanoke, the hills get higher and higher because you keep getting closer to the Appalachian Mountains, and then eventually they transform into the mountains as you drive through them. And I thought that would be a really cool drive, and I wanted to record it on my dash cam too, because I thought it would be a lot of fun. Also because the shape is shaped exactly like my bandana, so that's why I really been wanting to go there for a long time. But at this time, in 2017, August of 2017, I didn't want to go there to film a video, and I only wanted one way there. I did not need a return trip. I was going to go there to kill myself that day, and I posted an ad on Craigslist. I didn't type in the ad that I was going to commit suicide on the beach in Virginia. But I typed in that I wanted a ride to this beach in Virginia, and I just wanted to be dropped off there. It's this lonely beach on Sandpiper Road. I found it while I was looking at satellite images of Virginia on Google Maps. And from what I've seen, the beach on Sandpiper Road, it appeared to be very isolated. It didn't really seem like a place that a lot of people would go to. It seemed very secluded and it seemed abandoned. That's how I thought it was, and that's how I believed it was going to be. And as I said earlier, I wanted to be alone on the beach when I committed suicide because I wanted to die by myself on the beach far away from home where no one would be there to see me or anything like that, and where I wouldn't be found till a long time, or where I wouldn't be found at all, really. And even if I was found, even if my body was found on that beach, no one would have knew who I was because I don't know anyone in Virginia. Yeah, there's like a whole bunch of places that I've been wanting to road trip to, and I'm always trying to find someone to take me to all those places. And one of the biggest misconceptions that people always make about me and always make about the places I want to road trip to, they always think that I'm trying to meet someone there or that I'm going there to visit someone. But that isn't true. I don't know anyone in Virginia. I don't know anyone in Winchester, Virginia. And I don't know anyone in Roanoke, Virginia. And Alabama was another place I've been wanting to road trip to. I don't know anyone in Alabama. Mississippi was a place I wanted to road trip to and a place that I found someone to take me to. I didn't know anyone in Mississippi. And Arkansas and Texas and Oklahoma, those are more places I've been wanting to road trip to. I don't know anyone living in Arkansas, Oklahoma, or in Texas. And I definitely didn't know anyone in Virginia at the time either. So if I would have died in Virginia, and if they would have found me dead on the beach, they wouldn't know who I was, and I would be buried in a potter's graveyard as a John Doe. That's what they call an unidentified dead man when they find him. He is called to John Doe. They do a composite sketch of him. They take pictures of his body. If he's not too badly damaged, they'll release pictures of his body, and they get samples of his DNA. They run it through a database to compare it to other DNAs of missing people, but there wouldn't be a match for me. And then that would basically be it. They would just enter my DNA into the database in case like a matching DNA is turned in, and then that would be it. However, there is one way that I would technically become identified, but I'll save that till the ending of this video. So you guys may also be wondering exactly how was I going to kill myself on this beach in Virginia. I remember I've talked about this before a long time ago in some of my older videos from 2017. I wouldn't say how I was going to at first, and a lot of people just started guessing. People were typing in, oh, he was going to drown himself on the beach, but that's not what I was going to do. I wasn't going to get into the water or anything like that. What I was going to do was I was going to take a poisonous chemical on that beach, and I was going to use the poisonous chemical to kill myself on the beach. I'm not going to say what the poisonous chemical is because it's something that most people do not realize is poisonous if humans ingest it. And it's something that you can get like literally anywhere. You can buy it in the stores, and people don't know that this product contains that poisonous chemical. So because I don't want any of my YouTube followers to kill themselves ever, please don't ever commit suicide, seriously. But because I don't want any of my YouTube followers to use it to kill themselves, I'm not going to say the name of the poisonous chemical I was going to use or what product I was going to get to obtain the poisonous chemical either. I actually done a video about this before and I blurred the name of the product out. So I posted the ad on the rideshare section of Craigslist. I typed in that I was going through some difficult times in my life. I didn't type in that I was going to kill myself on the beach, but I typed in that I just wanted to be dropped off on the beach on Sandpiper Road in coastal Virginia, near Virginia Beach. And I was looking for someone to take me there and to leave me there, and that I didn't need a ride back. I just wanted to be left there by myself. So I didn't say that I was going to commit suicide, but if anyone would have read that post I made on the rideshare section of Craigslist back then, they would have definitely knew that I was going through some really hard times, really. Even though I wasn't really specific on things, they would have definitely have known. And I had my phone number listed on the rideshare ad. Now there's another thing that I want to make really clear. Usually when people talk about being depressed and that they're sad and that they're depressed and that they want to die and that they want to kill themselves, usually when people talk like that, people around them tend to steer clear of them and keep away from them because they start getting freaked out. They start thinking, oh, this person's going to kill themselves. I better stay away from them. They have some serious issues. That's usually how it always is. When someone's depressed and when someone's sad and wants to kill themselves, and when they start talking about stuff like that, people usually will steer clear of them and stay away from them. And they'll think, oh, this isn't good. I need to stay away from them. Now, that doesn't always happen, because usually if you have like really good family members and you're talking about that you're depressed and that you're suicidal and that you're sad, if they're really loyal to you, they will stick around and they will try to help you. But we're talking about myself here. We're talking about Joe Winko. Joe Winko doesn't have people who are loyal to him. So when I start talking about stuff like that, people get freaked out and they don't want anything to do with me. They're like, this guy's crazy. I'm going to stay away from him. But every now and then, if I start saying that enough, I start to attract people who want to help me, and probably not the way you guys are thinking. People who want to help me kill myself. That's what I tend to attract, really. It's almost like I'm a magnet for people like that. For example, back in 2016, I ran off while me and my adoptive parents were on a road trip, and things got bad between me and them, and it didn't go so well, really. And then I ran off without my insulin because they were kicking me out of the house at that time. And I told them that I was going to run away without my insulin and that I was going to try to get as far away down south as possible so I could die somewhere because I didn't want to die in Wisconsin. And then there was this guy who was a veterinarian who said that he wanted to take me back to his place so he could have sex with my dead body. Those are the kind of people that I usually tend to attract when I start talking about wanting to die and everything. I always find someone who wants to help me. And even in 2018, I posted an ad online saying that I was looking for a ride to the top of the Skyway Bridge. And some creepy guy replied to the ad online. He told me that he wanted to drive me to the top of the Skyway Bridge so he can film a snuff film of me jumping off of it, and he wanted to film my body hitting the rocks after I jump off the Skyway Bridge, and he wanted to post it online and sell it online as an erotic snuff film. So that's what I mean when I start talking about like wanting to die and everything. I always attract people who want to help me with that. And that's exactly what happened here. I posted my phone number on the ad I posted on Craigslist, and this guy called me, and I had a picture of myself on the ad. It was a picture of me wearing the red pointy bandana, a picture of me from year 2017. And me and him were talking to each other. He told me that he read my ad on Craigslist, and he said that him and his friends were going to be driving out to party on Virginia Beach. And he was asking me, "What's going on with you? You look like you're going through some rough stuff." And he wasn't very serious. He seemed to be laughing about everything, really. From what I was able to tell, I felt like he was probably high on something. And I just, that kind of triggered me to hear him talk to me in that tone. So, and when I get triggered and I'm going through a hard time in my life, that's when I just start spilling everything out. And that's exactly what I did. I told him that I was a type 1 diabetic, that I was insulin dependent, and I told him that the state of Wisconsin was cutting me off my state health insurance, and I wouldn't get my insulin that I need to survive, and that I was going to die. And I told him that I did not want to die in Wisconsin, and I told him that I wanted to die on this abandoned beach in Virginia, and that I was looking for someone to take me to this abandoned beach in Virginia so I could overdose on this chemical I bought from a store, and not many people know that this chemical is poisonous. I mean, that this product contains a poisonous chemical. And I was going to use that to kill myself on the beach in Virginia, and I was looking for someone to take me there. And then he was like, "Oh, damn, that's deep. You're really going to do that?" And then he started asking me more questions about the chemical I was going to use, and he was like, "Oh, that's really poisonous if people drink it?" And I said, "Yeah, not many people know that this chemical is poisonous, and not many people know that these products contain that poisonous chemical because it wasn't intended for human consumption, the product I was going to use." But I told him it contains a poisonous chemical, and if humans drink it, they die. And then he told me, "Oh, I don't think that's going to work. You can't use that. That's not going to work. You got to use something else instead." And I said, "Well, what do you think I should use?" Now, apparently, this guy who called me on Craigslist, I never met him in person. I didn't end up meeting him in person. He told me that he did drugs a lot, and he asked me, "Well, have you ever used heroin before?" Now, I never use heroin or anything like that because I'm completely against drugs. I learned all about drugs in school. I've been to many DARE classes and things like that. And I never use drugs. I don't go around people who use drugs. I never went around people who use drugs. And I actually did have a friend who passed away from a heroin overdose 4 years before all this was going on. And I didn't know he was using heroin, and I felt sorry for him. But I always knew that heroin was a drug that's extremely dangerous and that could kill you. So I never took any drugs, and I never took heroin before in my life. To this day, I still haven't taken heroin. However, there would be only one reason why I would ever take heroin, and I would only take it if I wanted to die. That's the only reason why I would ever take heroin. But again, I never took heroin before, and I don't use it, and I never have used it, and never will use it. Apparently, he told me that he bought some heroin and some strange pills from some drug dealer in Chicago. And he told me that he didn't trust the drug dealer because usually when people get drugs from off the streets, a lot of times they're going to be laced with something deadly that can kill them. And they sell them these drugs that are laced with some bad stuff so they could kill them. And then he said that if you truly never used heroin before And if you inject this into your body, if you inject enough amount of it into your body, it will cause you to fall into a deep sleep and it will cause you to die a painless death. That's exactly what he told me. And then I was like, it really would? That's exactly how it would cause me to die? And he said, yeah, especially if you haven't taken any of this stuff before, and especially if it's laced with something else, because he told me that he didn't trust the person that he bought it from. He said that he bought it on a whim, but he didn't trust the person that he bought it from, and he said that he didn't want to take it because he felt like it was laced with something. He also said that he had a bunch of pills that he bought. I forgot what he said the pills were called, but he said that he thinks that the pills were laced with something too, or that there was something, but he said that he doesn't think the pills were legitimate. He thinks that they were some bad pills that would also result in my death if I ingested them also. He said that if I took both of those things combined especially, that it was a very, very high chance that if I took that on the beach in Virginia, that I would die. And then I was like, oh, well, okay. And then he says, well, if you really want to go there, I'll take you there. And he said, will you be wearing your red pointy hat too? And I told him, yes, I will be wearing my red pointy bandana because I want my biological uncle to recognize me up in heaven when I finally die on the beach and when King Neptune takes my soul out to the ocean. I explained all that to him, and he was basically laughing at everything I was telling him. He thought that it was all funny. He knew I was serious. I mean, he was going to take me. That's what he was saying, that he would pick me up. And he said, oh, okay, so I'll take you so you can go be with your uncle again. And he was laughing about that. And I told him the date to pick me up on, because it wasn't going to be till like another week till he was leaving. And I gave him the address of the park that I wanted him to pick me up from. He was going to drive me to Wisconsin all the way to coastal Virginia, and that's where I was going to kill myself at, on the beach in coastal Virginia. And I wanted him to drop me off there right at sunrise, right as the sun was coming up, because I always thought that sunrises were beautiful, and that's when I wanted to die, on the beach in Virginia. So, after that happened, I spent the next few days at home at the apartment in Wisconsin where I was living at the time. I wasn't going to bring anything with me. I was just going to put on my red shorts and I was just going to have my red pointy bandana when he came to pick me up. I actually had a meeting with my psychiatrist who I would go to see from time to time. And when I went to go see her, I didn't tell her about the ad I posted on Craigslist, and I didn't tell her about the guy who was going to pick me up and take me to the beach on Virginia and who was going to give me drugs to kill myself with. But I did tell her that I got a note in the mail saying that the state of Wisconsin was going to cut me off my health insurance and that I was really upset about that. And she got really upset also. She was like, are you serious? You really got a note in the mail like that? And I had the note with me when I came in and I gave it to her. And she looked it over because I think at first she was thinking that it was some like spam note or something, like some fake note that someone sent out. But then she looked at it and she said, oh yeah, this looks very legitimate. And she said that they shouldn't be cutting me off my health insurance. And she told them that she was going to call the state of Wisconsin, and she said that she was going to talk to them about it. And she told me not to worry, that it was something that she was going to get taken care of. And she told me, they're not going to cut you off of your state health insurance. You need it because you're insulin dependent, and without your state health insurance, you won't be able to get your insulin and you will die. And she told me, they're not allowed to do that, but you have me to help you, and I'm going to make sure that this doesn't happen. So that gave me a bit of hope, really. So I went home that day after my psychiatrist visit, and that same afternoon, a couple hours later, she called me on the phone. She told me that she talked to them. She called the state of Wisconsin, told them about what the letter I got in the mail, and she said that they're not going to be cutting me off my health insurance, that I'm still going to have it. And a couple days later, I got another note in the mail saying that I wasn't going to be cut off my state health insurance, and I was happy about that. And also, a day before this guy was supposed to pick me up and take me to Virginia Beach, he called me and he said, "Hey, are you still gonna kill yourself on Virginia Beach? Do you still need a ride? Because I can come pick you up tomorrow. I'm going to Virginia Beach to party tomorrow." And I told him, "No, I don't need to go to Virginia Beach. I don't need to kill myself on the beach at all. The state has finally said they're not going to cut me off my health insurance." And then he started laughing and he was like, "Oh, all right. So you don't have to die at all. Your uncle's going to be sad because he's not going to see you in heaven yet, but you don't have to die at all. That's pretty awesome." And he was laughing about that. And then he said, "Oh yeah, keep out of trouble, buddy. Bye." And then he hung up, and I never talked to him again after that, and I never met him. But that's the reason why I'm still here, and that's the reason why I didn't end up dying on that beach in Virginia. But eventually, I still wanted to visit Virginia anyway. I didn't want to go with him. If he's partying and doing drugs, I didn't want to go with him. I mean, especially now since I didn't have to die at all, I didn't want to go with him. It was actually the same stranger who I met online who took me to Arkansas back in year 2017 who brought me to coastal Virginia, because in summer of 2019 he called me on the phone one day. He said that he wanted to go on another road trip, and he was asking me, "Joe, do you want to go on another road trip with me?" And I said, "Oh yeah, sure." And he already knew that I was living in Florida at that time, and he said that, "Oh, where do you want to go?" And I told him, "Well, let's go to Virginia at first." And I said, "Could you pick me up from the train station in Virginia?" And he said, "Yeah, sure, I'll send you a train ticket to Virginia and I'll pick you up from there." So he sent me a train ticket to Richmond, Virginia, and we took a road trip like across Virginia, but we went a lot of other places besides that. And one of the first places that we went to in Virginia was the beach that I was going to kill myself on. And I told him what was going on at that time while we were driving to the beach. And he thought it was really sad. And he said that he was really upset by that, really, that the state of Wisconsin was actually going to cut me off my health insurance. And he thought that that was really twisted and really unfair, too. And the sad thing is, there's a lot of people that actually happened to. Like, I got lucky. My psychiatrist stood up for me. She called the state of Wisconsin and told them not to cut me off my health insurance. But there's a lot of people who weren't lucky enough to have someone to advocate for them. I was lucky enough to have that, but there's a lot of people all over the USA who weren't lucky enough to have someone to stand up for them and to advocate for them. And there's a lot of people who have committed suicide because they were cut off their health insurance. They couldn't get the medication or the medicine they need to stay alive, and they all died. That happens to a lot of people to this very day. It still goes on. That's how the healthcare system in the USA is. Luckily, the state I'm living in nowadays, Florida, from my experience, it seems like the state of Florida, they care more about their people than the state of Wisconsin. And I feel very lucky to be down here, honestly. Now, I can't say the same for everyone else who comes here, but for my experience, it's been quite a positive one being down here. Like my doctors down here, they were pretty nice. Most of them were, not all of them, but most of them were pretty nice and pretty helpful and very useful. And I'm in a much better place than I was back then, and I'm glad to still be here. I'm glad that I didn't die on that beach at all. But when I went to that beach in summer of 2019, when I officially visited Virginia for the first time, and I stood on that beach, I thought that beach was absolutely beautiful. And I kept thinking, this is this place is absolutely beautiful. This would have been the place where I would have spent the last few moments of my life. And if I could have had it any other way, if you told me that I was going to die and that I could choose any place to die at, it would have definitely been that beach in Virginia because it looked the exact same way I imagined it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm really happy to be alive now, and I definitely don't want to die now because there's a lot of stuff left that I want to do, a lot of things left that I want to accomplish. For example, I want to go back to Virginia and film a video there. I don't want to go back to Virginia to die, but I want to go there to film a video of Interstate 81 and Roanoke and Winchester, Virginia, and drive down Interstate 81, well, be driven down Interstate 81 since I don't like doing the driving, but I wanted to ride down Interstate 81 in the passenger seat and film the hills and the mountains and film us getting closer and closer to the mountains and film a video about exploring Winchester, Virginia and Roanoke, Virginia. I actually been trying to get in touch with some of the locals in Winchester and Roanoke, but I haven't had much luck finding anyone who lives in any of those towns at all. They seem kind of out of the way. You can't really get in touch with anyone in Roanoke or Winchester, Virginia. But I've been wanting to visit that area for a long time. Also because the state itself is shaped like my bandana, which is why I'm spiritually connected to it. But that's definitely not the only reason. Virginia is definitely a beautiful state, and I loved it there. I thought it was beautiful, really. It was the prettiest state that I went throughout that whole road trip. Virginia was the most beautiful state out of all those other states that my friend took me to back in summer of 2019. But I loved Virginia, and I definitely do want to go back there, not to die, but just to visit, really. And there's a lot more stuff in this life that I haven't accomplished yet that I want to accomplish. For example, I want to finish making my Scary Sims 2 movie, Onryo. That's going to be a scary movie about me dying of coronavirus, and then I come back as an evil monster that goes on a killing spree. Yeah, that's my crazy autism mind for writing that story. But there's one thing I need to get back to. Now, earlier in this video, I was saying that if I would have died on Virginia Beach and they found my body on Virginia Beach, no one would know who I am at all because I don't know anyone in Virginia. I mean, based on the way I was going to die, like by overdosing and everything, that doesn't really leave the body in a violent state or a violent condition. That doesn't really cause anything bad on the body. So they most likely would have had pictures of me from the morgue taken, and they would have published those pictures, and they would have released them out to everyone. And they probably would have had composite sketches of me. They would have had pictures of my bandana, had pictures of the necklace I was wearing, this necklace, to find if anyone would recognize me at all. And they would have that plastered mostly around the local area of Virginia Beach. That's where I imagine they would have it. And they would have taken my DNA and they would have entered it into the DNA database, and then they would have buried me in a potter's graveyard in coastal Virginia as a John Doe. but they would have put my DNA in the system. Now, theoretically, there's one way I would have been identified. So if my adoptive parents, they wouldn't have heard from me for a couple of weeks because it wasn't like I was going to announce to them, hey, I'm going to get cut off my state health insurance, I'm running away and I'm going to die, bye. I wasn't going to say that. I wasn't going to tell them because in my opinion, it was honestly none of their business. But what I imagined is that they would have came back to the apartment because they hadn't heard from me in a long time. They would have went into the apartment. They most likely would have found the note, the letter that I got from the state health insurance, and then they would have saw that I was gone and that all my stuff was left behind. They would have read the letter, and then right away they would have knew exactly that I ran away and probably killed myself somewhere. And they wouldn't know where I was at, but they would know that I was someplace far away because my adoptive parents know, they kind of have an idea on how my autism mind works. They know about the rough times in my life, so they would know that I would be someplace far away and that I would be dead somewhere and unidentified. What I think they would have most likely would have done. Now, for those of you who don't know about my past life, I was actually born in a juvenile prison because at the time of my birth, my biological mother was in a juvenile prison. And what they most likely would have done was they would have either tried to locate the remains of my biological mother, who died of drug complications 2 weeks after I was born, or they would have tried to relocate the remains of my biological father, who was killed by a prison inmate in 1998, because he was in prison in 1998 and he was killed in prison in 1998. They would have either tried to locate the body of my biological mother or my biological father, and they would have exhumed their remains. They would have collected a DNA sample from them because I'm pretty sure they're buried in a prison graveyard somewhere. That's where I'm assuming they're buried at. They would have collected the DNA from one of them and they would have entered it into the missing persons database, and then it would have made a match to a body found in coastal Virginia. And as soon as they tell them, oh, this guy was found on a beach in Virginia, he was wearing no shirt, this is the necklace he was wearing, this is the bandana he was wearing, and the DNA that we entered into the system matched up with him, they would have knew right away that it was me, that it was my body they found on the beach. They would have also known how I got there too, because they know that I post ads online, always trying to find someone to go on a road trip with and to run away with. And they would have understood, especially if they gave them the autopsy results in combination with that letter that they would have found saying that I was going to be cut off my health insurance. They would have known that it was a suicide, and then it would basically be case closed from there. Now, there might be, I highly doubt that they would do this. I mean, I'll leave it up to you guys to decide whether or not this would happen. There might be an investigation on exactly how I got to Virginia Beach and how those drugs ended up in my system. Like, they probably would have thought that someone else was involved with my death, which clearly someone else would have been, because I wouldn't have got to Virginia by myself and I wouldn't have got to that beach by myself. I mean, that beach in coastal Virginia, it's a pretty isolated beach. I mean, it doesn't seem like a place that a lot of people know about. It seems like a place that's really far out of the way, that I want to say almost a place that isn't discovered really. I mean, it definitely is, but it's actually surrounded by like a small beach town community. It kind of reminded me of Flagler Beach, Florida. That's kind of what it reminded me of. And I posted about this on Reddit a long time ago, and one person typed in on Reddit, I'm going to show the comments right here. One person typed in, so you must have been on either Black Bay Wildlife Refuge or False Cape State Park. Good on you for not making a mess for the park rangers. And then one other person replied, EMS. Unfortunately, our EMS volunteers would have had to take him to the morgue. And another person typed in, you're right. I was just thinking about some poor park ranger stumbling across this nincompoop's lifeless meat vessel. What a geesh. But the thing is, like, if I would have killed myself on the beach and they said, good on you for not making a mess for the park rangers, it wouldn't really be a mess at all. It wasn't like I was gonna shoot myself or cut my wrist or anything like that. I was gonna die by overdosing on poisonous chemicals. All they would have to do is just go find my body on the beach, wrap it up, and then take pictures of it, probably get fingerprints or something like that, collect DNA samples, and then take it back to the morgue, and then eventually bury it in a potter's graveyard, really. That's all they would have to do. So, yeah. And that comment that they left, you're right. I was just thinking about some poor park ranger stumbling across this nincompoop's lifeless meat vessel. That's what I mean, really. When people talk about wanting to die and wanting to commit suicide, people get pissed off at them and they want to steer clear of them. And they said, oh, well, you're just an idiot. You just want to kill yourself. And, well, people like that are the reason why people end up that way, really. It's people who are rotten like that. And that person is a rotten person. That's all I have to say about them, really. But let's not even go there. I am glad to still be here. I'm glad that that wasn't my fate. I mean, yeah, like if I had to die, well, I thought that I had to die, but that would have been the way I would prefer to go out on a beach, on a beautiful beach in Virginia with no one else around me, just me by myself and just hearing the waves crashing on shore. And that would be the last thing that I would have ever heard. The waves crashing on shore during the sunrise, hearing the seagulls fluttering around. And then King Neptune would take my soul out into the water to reunite me with the soul of my biological uncle, and we would have flew away together in heaven, and it would have been beautiful, but I'm glad it didn't have to end that way. There's still stuff in life that I really want to do, and there's still more stuff that I haven't accomplished yet. I'm glad that that wasn't how it all ended. However, I do believe in alternate realities and in alternate timelines and parallel universes. And while I was on that beach, I kept thinking, somewhere in a parallel universe where things didn't work out so well, this is the place where it all actually did end. And somewhere in a parallel universe, my body was really found on that beach, and that's where I died at. And if that would have happened, and if my adoptive parents would have found out what happened to me, because I imagined that they would have eventually done that. I'm pretty sure they would have, because, like, my adoptive mother, she's a really nosy person. She always wants to know everything, and she's always nosy about stuff like that, especially something like this. They would have definitely have located the remains of my biological parents and had them dug up, and they would have definitely collected the DNA samples and ran it into the database, and they would have definitely found out that I died on that beach. However, that's definitely not something that would have occurred right away. It would have taken them years to find the remains of my biological parents. Would have taken them years to find out where they're buried and find the cemeteries that they're buried at. And even if they did find those right away, it takes time for the DNA samples to process. If they exhumed the remains of my biological parents and ran them into the database, it takes time for all of that to process, and it probably would have been at least a year or two before they finally found out who I was and that my name was Joe Winko and that I was a missing person who ran away from Wisconsin. And even after finding that out, my biological parents, they knew that I hated the state of Wisconsin. They knew that I didn't want to die there. They knew that I never wanted to come back to Wisconsin. They would have left me buried at the Potter's Graveyard in coastal Virginia. I mean, I'm not even sure if they would get a headstone replacement, so the headstone would still say unidentified male found 2017. I mean, they probably would if they could get one cheap enough, but most likely my headstone would still read unidentified male found dead 2017, August of 2017, which is actually the same time that XXXTentacion posted a song on YouTube called Save Me. And I'm not going to play the song in this video, but I'll have the link to it in the pinned comments. The song Save Me by XXXTentacion. I've been to XXXTentacion's grave, and a lot of his music that he put out, it really stuck with me, but it has this haunting and slow tone to it, and he was singing about being depressed and voices inside of his head saying that he was going to end up dead, and he was saying, "Save me before I fall." That's what he was singing in the song. And then I remember when I first heard that song, when I first found it on YouTube, and I looked at the date that it was uploaded, and it gave me the chills because it was uploaded on August 25th of 2017. And had I been taken to Virginia that day, if I would have been cut off my state health insurance and was taken to coastal Virginia, that would have been the day that I would have died on, August 25th of 2017. And I would have been 21 years old forever. And the picture of me that I wanted to be put on my headstone, this picture right here, that picture would have never existed if I would have died that day. That picture that you're looking at of me right now, that picture would have not existed, and I would have been gone forever. And somewhere in an alternate timeline, in a parallel universe, that picture really doesn't exist, and I was gone forever. And it's chilling and it's really sad to think about, but it's true. So that's basically it for this episode of Joe Winko Talk. It's a very haunting thing to discuss, but I felt like it was important to talk about because the whole point of my YouTube videos is for you guys to get to know me and get to know what goes on in my life and to get to know what happened in my life, the good times and the bad times too. So let me know what you think of this video. What did you think of what I discussed? What did you think of what I talked about? What did you think of the thoughts of what was going on inside my mind? And what did you think about everything I said in this video? And what do you think about how I'm always able to find someone to help me? Whenever I want to die, I always find someone who wants to help make sure I die. I mean, I honestly think it's kind of sad, really, that I'm always able to find someone to help me whenever I'm depressed and sad and want to die. There's always someone who's willing to help assist me with it. I mean, It's a bit sad that the universe is throwing signals at me like that. I'm like, huh, geesh, that's not good. Because that isn't the first time I ran into people like that, as I explained. But it's just gotta keep moving, really. And it's why I'm still here. And what I was saying earlier about how I love myself more than anyone else will ever love me, the person who loves Joe Winko the most is Joe Winko. And that is absolutely true. It's sad, but it's absolutely true. No one loves Joe Winko more than Joe Winko. And that's the reason why there were so many times that I was going to kill myself, but I never went through with it at all because of that. That's what kept me alive all this time. My love for myself and how I'm proud of myself and how I'm proud of how far I came and how I'm proud of what I become, really. And you know, there's so many people who can't even say that, but I definitely can. I don't mean to sound stuck up or anything, but it's true, really. And everyone should say that about themselves, but there's so many people who can't. And it's sad, really. But that's exactly what kept me alive. So that's basically it. Don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. So that's it. Peace out, people.